Guess I should turn myself on. Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good Friday morning. I can't believe it's Friday. I'm so happy that it's Friday. I work all weekend, but that's okay. We can still have a little fun. Good morning, Karen and Karen. Hopefully, you guys are having a good morning. And we have Colonel Joe Adams popping in with us here in just a few moments with the Washington Guard, of course. Can't wait to talk to Colonel Joe Adams. I don't know what he's got on his agenda. Hopefully, he's got some good stuff for us today. But on top of that, I do want to talk to him about these impending drone strikes against the Mexican cartels. We've talked about it for a long time that there was something going to happen, but it's finally getting ready to happen. As a matter of fact, by the time we talk about these things, it's probably already happening. So we're going to get into that. Good morning, Karen. And I already said Karen, sorry. And Tammy Jerry Hoover. Hope you guys are having a good morning. And so lots to talk about today. Again, we'll have Colonel Joe Adams joining us here in about 5 minutes. And some of the things I want to jump into, besides, of course, the drone strikes against the Mexican cartels, I wanted to talk a little bit about something else Doge uncovered. Nothing too crazy, nothing that would surprise us. We can talk a little bit about Russiagate and the information that's been released. Again, nothing too surprising, just lots of validation, things heating up a little bit with China. Trump, of course, thinks it's pretty funny, quite honestly. He knows what he's doing. He definitely knows what he's doing. Of course, Europe buddying up the European Union with China. Of course they would. Trump warned them not to do that, but they're going to do it anyway. So those are some things we'll get into. Good morning, Brenda. And I'm just so glad that it's Friday. I'm so glad. You know, Something else I want to talk about today, I'm going to show the videos later, is that helicopter crash that took place yesterday in New York City. Of course, killed a family. Horrific situation, but it's like, what is going on? And I'm not going to be some conspiracy person over whatever happened with this helicopter crash. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is awfully strange. It really is awfully strange because here we have this situation. And I'll play the videos later on, at the end of the show or towards the end of the show. But here we have this situation where this helicopter, the family is there, an executive, of course, of Siemens, and they showing the family around New York City. And the pilot apparently sent out a Mayday type message saying he was out of fuel. Okay, but his tail came off and his rotors came off. And what does that have to do with fuel? So there's a lot of speculation out there. And maybe there's someone who knows. Maybe it does make sense to someone. But I don't know if Ken Lee's with us here today or will join us later. Of course, he flew Marine One, back for Reagan and George Bush. Still trying to get him on the show, by the way. But he's a busy man because he also owns a company that does roofing and other, repairs. So busy time for him. But we are, definitely going to talk about that later. I've got a couple of video clips to show. And, it was a horrific situation. I feel bad even showing the clips. I almost didn't. But at the same time, it's news. And this is what we talk about is news. And it just simply doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I read some other pilots that were commenting on the crash saying, that just doesn't look right. And, I don't know. We'll talk about it then, but it is pretty crazy. And, other than that, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Jay says 8 million conspiracy theories. There are, Jay. Some of them are more valid than others. I see so many things that I never even discuss on the show. So many different things because I see all of these different things taking place and all of the different speculation as to what's going on. But a lot of it I just ignore because it's not that I don't necessarily believe it, but it's that I just don't know. I don't want to bring up something unless I have a pretty good opinion one way or the other about it. I did want to show you guys this clip real quick before Colonel Joe Adams joins us here in just 2 minutes. And this is Donald Trump, of course, laughing. I'll probably play this again later for the folks who join us later on, but this is pretty funny. We're talking about the tariffs with China. China, I think you guys know, if they decide they really, really want to play games with us, they ship and manufacture and ship a lot of their medications to us, medications that Americans desperately need. So I think if they really want to play tough, they can say, all right, United States, we're just not going to send any medications to you. But what do you think Trump cares about movies? Because, of course, they don't want to. China is a big purchaser of United States movies. Chinese people love American movies. no more. But Trump thinks it's pretty funny. Take a look at this real quick clip here.
Retaliated today by reducing the number of China retaliated today by shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
Pretty funny. Yeah, he's definitely heard of worse things. He's probably like I am. We need to get some better movies out there. Maybe we'll worry about it a little bit more. I'm hoping for a good year in 2025 for the movie industry. I really, really am. Hopefully some good stuff coming up ahead in our futures. Good morning, Sherry. And Jay says Black Hawk pilot said that that particular model can have an extremely rare transmission failure that can cause the main rotor to drop and hit the rear spine. You know, Jay, I haven't seen any video that far back to see exactly how it all took place. Good morning, Scott and Sherry. But I will tell you that that's exactly what I was wondering. Not about the transmission. I don't know anything about that. But I did wonder if that top rotor came back and hit the tail and knocked that off. That's certainly a good possibility. And I've not seen any video, so I don't know. Sherry, Crossfire Hurricane has been released. Really? We'll have to take a look at that. All right. Well, let's bring Colonel Joe Adams in with us. We don't want him waiting in the wings when he is the star attraction. Let's see here. Colonel Joe Adams. So, good morning, Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. So happy to see you this morning. How are you doing today?
Real good. I've been called a lot of things, but I've never been called the main attraction. So I feel like I'm a sideshow. Hey, hey, lots of comedy this week in American politics. I mean, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. So, according to the White House, due to presidential directive, that Adam Schiff now will be referred to as Watermelon Head or Pencil Neck. So, I mean, don't get into a word game with Donald Trump because he'll just turn it on you. Then Senator Kennedy backs it up, and they were interviewing him, and he was a born comedian, and said that the Republicans how to deal with AOC. What's their posture on how to deal with AOC, who's a maniac? And he says our posture and our policy is just let her talk. That was cracking me up. Then he follows it up and he goes, let me tell you about AOC. AOC is an example of why they have directions on a shampoo bottle. I mean, just where'd these guys come up with this stuff? It's just comical.
And it's true. And it's true.
Well, that's why it's so funny, because it's all true. You know, I don't know if Comedy Central's around anymore, but you don't have to watch that. Just listen to the politicians making fun of the Democrats. It's hysterical.
It is. And of course, President Trump joining right in with them.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's a quick responder to that. Hey, but I think the last show I was on with you, I made a reference to I'm always making reference to treason. And I keep telling people that these acts are not just criminal by the Democratic Party in the deep state and the swamp. This is treasonous. But now, all of a sudden, just this week, Donald Trump has thrown that in. In fact, in one press interview he gave, he actually mentioned the word treason or treasonous 12 times.
Good.
So thank you. I mean, I've been preaching this for years. This is not just criminal. This is treasonous. And so that's a different aspect as far as the FBI investigation into some of the acts in money laundering and all that. It's not just criminal. It's treasonous. So thank you, President Trump, for taking my lead.
Now, where's the accountability?
Yep, treason. So that's a whole different avenue of investigation. That's an angle. And thank God he's finally using it. And they deserve it because they are a bunch of treasonous. Anyway. Islam community in Texas, huh? Building a big one, over 400 square acres.
Yeah, I played the video for that a couple weeks ago, and it's called Epic. Their own community.
Yeah, 1,000 homes, shopping centers, malls, whatever, just for Islam. a no-go zone. I think it's in Plano, Texas, just outside of Dallas. But anyway, Beck on his show yesterday played a tape of an interview with the guy who's the developer of that Islamic community in Texas. And the one thing that stood out was the fact that they argue the fact that why should they obey local laws when they have Sharia law? And he explained, he says, because here's why. He says, common law in the United States is passed and developed by infidels. The fact that they are not God, that they are just elected politicians, and they pass these laws. So why should Islam obey local law enforcement when their policy with Sharia law was developed by God, which is Muhammad? So they're not going, it would appear they're hinting they're not even going to recognize common law. They'll have their own police department, their own currency, and they're building 1,000 homes to start off with.
Yeah, Colonel Adams, I played the video for that. We talked about it pretty extensively a couple weeks ago, and it absolutely is going to be a no-go zone. It is going to be, they are going to have their own police department. They are going to have, their own laws. They are going to be run by Sharia law. Because I made the point at the time that we talked about it, that Donald Trump, I hope, steps up and deals with these no-go zones. Here in America, we shouldn't have no-go zones where not only can Americans not go, but our police forces cannot go. That's why they call it no go, because you don't get to go. And I'll tell you, it is time that we do something about this, because it should not be allowed. If you and if we decided, hey, we're going to create our own space and create our own laws in our community, what do you think would happen to us?
Well, it'd just be chaos, total disaster. But first of all, who wants to go there to begin with? Which is not the real problem is law enforcement. And on that interview with Beck, he talked about because their law is perfect because Americans are imperfect, whereas Muhammad is perfect, and so his law overrides common law. And they've had no-go zones in Michigan for years.
New York City, Michigan, other parts of Texas,
especially Michigan. Yeah.
They're
anyway,
all over the place.
Yeah. Well, here's what I say about that. Good. It's like Chesty Puller said when in World War II, most decorated Marine in World War II, surrounded by the enemy. Good. We'll just shoot in every direction. The good thing about the no-go zones in Islamic communities is the fact that we know where they're at. So thank you. Thank you for dropping smoke and picking, and so we can see the target. So good. Let them all get together in one place. That's fine. Now we know where they're at.
Well, yeah, but I hope that a lot of people, Colonel Adams, that I've talked to in the past, will say, "Oh, it's fine. Let them have their Sharia law." It's not fine, and I know this is because women are heavily abused in these areas. They have absolutely no rights under Sharia law. There are women who are murdered and no one ever hears about it, knows about it. If a woman wants to, let's say, leave her husband, she's not allowed to take her children. She's cast out from their area, never, spoken to again. She has absolutely no rights. And, they cover up sexual assault because within their community, that's totally normal. There's child abuse, pedophilia. There's so many things that go into play with these communities. And I am completely just outraged by it. I really am. And to think that we're allowing this to happen right here in America is insane.
Well, like I say, at least we know where they're at. And that's an advantage for us.
It is.
The entire interview was on Beck that he played. Nothing. The only thing that wasn't mentioned when he was talking about Sharia law was the rights of women. And the reason he didn't mention it because the women have no rights.
That's right.
No rights. No rights whatsoever. Not, nothing. They're like cattle. So
yeah.
Welcome to America. That's okay. We know where they're at now. Put them all in one place. You guys talk about the B-2 bomber over there and bombing the Houthis?
Not today, but we have talked about it, in the past. I know, what do they have? 3 now, I believe, is what we talked about a couple weeks ago. Now we're, of course, continuing those strikes against the Houthis. Why? I don't really know.
Well, I do. So we don't need the B-2 bomber there. We got, we have the Super Hornets and the F-35. We don't need that. But here's what, and Iran knows this. Donald Trump ordered those planes to go there. Now, why would he do that? Well, Iran knows the only bunker bomb that we have is launched by the B-2. That's why he sent them there. He's sending a message to Iran without saying anything. We got B-2 bombers over here. Guess what their specialty is? First of all, you can't see them, can't catch them. And they're the only ones who can drop the big bomb, the bunker busting bomb. And Iran's picked up on that. So instead of leaving Missouri and not being operational in the Mideast for 12 hours until they get there and get refueled, no. Instead of being 12 hours away of Iran, now they're within minutes away from Iran.
Which makes sense, them being, is it Chagos? Am I saying that right? Chagos military base? We talked about it, a couple of weeks ago about when they first put those B-52 bombers there. What was interesting is J.D. Vance, I don't know if you heard his statement. I was kind of wondering if maybe he and Trump were not on necessarily the same side when it came to the Houthis, because J.D. Vance corrected a reporter who was, claiming that the Houthis had killed a couple Americans. And J.D. Vance is like, no, they're really no threat to us. They've never killed an American. Yeah, they shoot at our equipment all of the time, but they have never harmed an American. And so I thought that was an interesting statement for him to make.
I don't know what that was all about. I caught that also. I just kind of just wrote it off. But you shoot at me, I'm going to kill you. So that's right. And that's the way to do it. Why would you shoot? If you shoot at me and you miss, so what? You still shot at me. I'll kill you. But anyway, Iran knows that bunker bomb is about minutes away from Iran. That's why he sent the B-2s there. Period. That's it. Without saying why. That's why. Iran got the message. So. All right, so they're playing the word game, and you'll pick up on this. The media, MSNBC and CNN, every time they talk about MAGA, they also inject the word Nazi. That they don't say. They're saying that other people are saying, oh, they're calling the MAGA the new Nazi, the new American Nazi Party. They're planting a seed. They're actually trying to get the public to relate. When they hear MAGA, they also hear Nazi. So it's a psyops program, and it's being promoted by the Democrats, of course. But you can't, and these people using the word Nazi have no idea what that was all about. It's just the opposite with the Trump White House. So anyway, be careful. Count how many times when you watch a news broadcast the word Nazi comes up, directed at MAGA. Oh,
it's constant.
So Trump, these guys got to stay up late at night. They probably can't sleep. Every day Donald Trump throws a little bit of a jab at him. And so Donald Trump, I guess they planted a beautiful magnolia tree at the White House, in the White House garage. So what's he call it? The Maganola? That's got to irritate those people to death. I mean, there's a lot of comedy in today's politics. You just have to be awake and read between the lines. But he's incredible. He can't even plant a tree without giving a jab back to the Democrats. The guy's a genius, which we know. And I saw they were talking about how everybody talks about Donald Trump being this great entrepreneur and developer, and they bring up, well, what happened to the Trump casino in New Jersey on the boardwalk? It's gone. The building's gone. So he's not this genius. I go, really? Well, Donald Trump closed Trump Casino on the boardwalk in there in New Jersey because the boardwalk closed. Everybody bailed. What's he going to hang around with no tourists? No. The boardwalk went first. Donald Trump had to make a maneuver. It was up and growing business there for a while. Everybody moved to Vegas. So anyway.
Well, I remember going to the boardwalk in New Jersey. My stepfather's family's from that area. When I was a kid, we'd go to the boardwalk. I was, of course, a kid. So we'd go get ice cream at the casino and, walk up and down and get some saltwater taffy. It was a fantastic place back then. But then, like everything else that's Democrat ran, it ended up just, all types of crazy crime and homelessness. And of course, then it shut down.
Yep. crime and homelessness, that closed boardwalk. Yes,
That
yes,
it
it did. It
did.
wasn't Donald Trump. Donald Trump said he couldn't do anything about it, so he just closed shop, moved on. That's business. Uh, have you wolf DNA developing that wolf
You
that's
know,
going
I
to
have not talked about that
extinct?
yet.
Mhm.
I think it's
I listened to the
insane,
interview
quite
that,
honestly.
and everything just went black. Okay, well, I don't know. They're playing with Mother Nature and they're playing with God. I mean, that's why was it necessary? Well, the reason they're doing all this research, the bottom line is superhuman. They actually do want to develop it because they know that China's doing the same thing. God only knows what they're doing. They don't make their work public. So if they can do this, they're trying to control the DNA, the genome they're trying to develop a superhuman. Now, what does that sound like? That does sound like the Nazis. Anyway, so that there's no reason to bring back that, but they're starting with these extinct animals, going to bring back the dodo bird and all that, which great. I mean,
Just,
who cares?
you know, I wish they'd quit playing with God's work, quite honestly. Just leave it alone. You know, if a
Yeah,
certain animal went extinct, if a certain species failed to thrive, then that's just how it was meant to be. Because I see our Earth as a living, evolving organism. You know, a very big organism that takes care of itself. And when things die out, that's because the Earth has evolved, and that species can no longer survive on the Earth. And new ones will continue to develop and thrive. And it's just the natural process. We shouldn't be messing with it.
yeah. Remember the old commercial for some kind of butter or margarine? Don't screw with Mother Nature.
Right.
It'll, it'll,
Exactly.
it'll,
I
it'll
remember
come
that
back. Hey,
in the
it'll come back
lightning
and
bolt.
bite you. Yeah, you screw with Mother Nature, it'll come back and bite you in the ass. I guarantee that. So I don't understand all that, but the bottom line is it's not the animals that they're so cared about bringing back. It's the research doing that is related to us, the superhuman race, period. He talks about it, but he gets away from it. No, this is all directed at developing a superhuman because China's doing it.
Yeah.
I'd
Oh,
have
yeah.
to
I
have
can't
food.
even imagine what China's doing over there. Their
Yeah,
experiments that we know nothing about.
absolutely. Was that online betting issue in Missouri? Is that still up for grabs? Does anybody know
I
that?
don't, you know what? I don't know. I haven't paid a lot of attention to online betting in Missouri. From what I understand, it's passed and people can now online bet in Missouri, from what I understand. Since I'm not in Missouri anymore, I don't pay as much attention to the Missouri laws as I used to.
Oh, Sherry Adams chimed in that was don't screw with Mother Nature was a palmotive dish
Palmolive
soap.
dish soap.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
yeah.
didn't they have like a lightning,
That-
a
I thought
lightning bolt?
I thought it was about a margin or something.
I thought
Again,
it was margarine too, but I do remember the commercial, which was pretty
yeah,
funny. You
yeah.
know, Carl Adams, I don't know about Missouri online betting, but you know, I did want to ask you. There's a couple things I wanted to ask you. One being, did you see what they're doing in Colorado, where they passed a law to ban semi-automatic weapons?
Good luck with that one. Good luck. You know, people don't understand how screwed up Colorado is, and
Yes.
really, no. Uh, my my buddy, John Teagan, Benghazi survivor, lives up there in Denver. I think he finally moved to Texas, found himself a girlfriend. But people he did a speech up there, a pro Trump speech, and somebody tried to run him down with a car and put him in the
Oh,
hospital. It's a blue state. Denver especially anti-gun, uh, horrible place to live. And I told John, I said, move,
yeah.
move. So
Right.
he ended up in Texas. Yeah, but even I didn't know that until John came for a visit and was telling about how liberal Denver and stuff was and anti-gun. I go, Denver, Colorado? He goes,
Right.
oh yeah, terrible. I said, what?
All of Colorado. And, you know, I think that's now, of course, people are saying, well, you know, Colorado, okay, so they passed a law. It's hard to believe it, quite honestly, that it even passed, but I guess it doesn't surprise me in Colorado. But, you know, to ban semi-automatic weapons, well, which blue state is next? It better not be Illinois, but which blue state is next? Because it's going to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, Illinois is on the same program. Anyway, I've always told you, move to God's country out here in Washington, Missouri. And anyway, so What was Smokey the Bear on the news this week? What was that about? I saw him on TV. What's that deal?
I did not see that. I didn't see anything
I
about
don't
that.
know.
I haven't seen
I don't-
Smokey the Bear in a long time.
Well, do you know why we had Smokey the Bear? You know why we how he was developed?
I
Are
don't.
you anybody
I
aware?
know what he did, but I don't know the why behind it.
The Japanese incendiary balloons they were sending over. That's
Oh,
how prevent forest fires. That's Smokey the Bear. That's when he was developed. Same time period. They had to come up with it. They had to come up with a sales program for the people to watch out for forest fires, and that's where Smokey the Bear came from.
well, I
He,
knew about the forest fires, but what does that have to do with the Chinese balloons? Were they causing fires?
no, I'm sorry. Did I say Chinese? No, excuse me. Japanese
Oh, you might have
balloons.
said. Oh, you might have said Japanese. Maybe I just didn't
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. Well, they're all, Japanese, Chinese, whatever. They're all the same. Uh, I'm not, huh? Yeah, World War II. The incendiary
Oh, I did
balloons
not.
that Japan was sending over.
Oh,
That's
okay,
that.
that makes sense. I maybe my
That was
brain just said China. I did
yeah,
not know that. I did not know that.
yeah.
Colonel Adams, I know before you go, I don't want to have to keep you longer than your time. I wanted to know what your comments are in regard to, of course, all of these meetings that are taking place, all of the uptick in surveillance across the border. Now we're calling the Mexican cartel insurgents, and that we are preparing for drone strikes against them. Have you heard anything more than maybe I heard, or do you know anything that's going on? Because, like I said before you came on, usually by the time we start talking about it and hear about it, it's already happening.
No, and I'll tell you, the intelligence community, there's not a whole lot of chatter about that. They're changed in terms about, insurgents and all these kind of things to make it politically correct. And here comes the cat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. My shadow.
that's funny.
No, it's very quiet.
Yeah,
Very
which is
quiet.
odd, don't you think?
Well,
It
I
has
was going
been quiet for quite a while now about this.
to call SOCOM this morning, but I slept in and try and get some information on that because they would know, our Southern Command. But I failed to make that phone call this morning, so I'll try and do that and see what I can find out, and we'll talk about it next Wednesday.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I think that term, the change, like you explained it as a change in term, they're calling them
mhm,
insurgents,
yep.
and that we have insurgents from another country crossing our border,
Mhm.
committing criminal acts here, committing terrorism in our country. That gives us the right to conduct these drone strikes.
Right. It's the same game. We just changed the sign, the wording on the
Right.
sign. That's all. That's typical. Uh, this weekend, big gun show in Fenton, Missouri, the Fenton Athletic Club. Is that right?
St. Louis Athletic.
St. Louis what?
Athletic Club.
St. Louis Athletic Club in Fenton. I had to ask my producer. She knows all these things. They set up today from 4 till 8 o'clock tonight. Yes, yes, ma'am. And then all day Saturday, and then Sunday from 9 to 3. I will not be there early Saturday morning. Deanna has her shooting competition tomorrow in Arnold, and so I have to attend that. But the Washington Guard will have a table out there, meet and greet. So anybody want to come out and to round with some real Americans, come out to the St. Louis Gun Show put on by BK Productions. Oh, in fact, the people that own BK, they're members of the Washington Guard, by the way, and big sponsors.
Oh,
Oh,
and good luck, Deanna.
yeah. She's my producer's always here. So I have to take my producer to her gun match tomorrow and coach her. So I won't be at the gun show until around 1 o'clock. Anyway, come out and see us. And what else was it? There was something else. The what? I don't know. There was, oh, no, the gun show, the Washington Guard table meet and greet. And that's about it.
Our muster's coming up
Oh,
Saturday.
yeah. And a week from this Saturday is our monthly muster. Come on out. In fact, any of the listeners that's not a member of the Washington Guard, they can register and sign up as a guest. And because it's a secured facilities. So if you're not on the sheet, you're not getting in. I don't care who you are. Channel 5 shows up, you're not getting in. So sign up as a get, and we'll take care of that. Anyway, go Indians, Ricky. Throw him the heater. That's all I got for today. Smokey the Bear. Trump's tariff tactics. So they're calling chicken all that. they don't understand how the man thinks. So anyway, he's got total control. All these countries are trying to negotiate now. He's giving them some time. Big deal. The threat's out there. You got 90 days. Figure it out. That's it. Adam Schiff's pencil neck and a watermelon head, and AOC can't read the directions on a shampoo bottle. See you next Wednesday. Hope to see you guys at the gun show this weekend. And cheer for Deanna to do good in her shooting tournament tomorrow. And then that's it. Signing off.
Thank you, Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck, Deanna. I hope everyone takes a look at the Washington Guard website. Go out to thewashingtonguard.com and you can see the clicker there on the thing. And sorry, Colonel Joe Adams, I'm working to get you out. There you go. And trying to get all of my little things pulled up here. But yes, thank you to Colonel Joe Adams for joining us today. Such a patriot. I actually had a different shirt on today. And then I'm like, I'm going to wear that. You can't see all of the shirt. Actually has a flag towards the bottom, but it's my red, white, and blue patriotic shirt. I'm like, I'm going to wear that for Colonel Adams today. Oh, good luck, of course, to Deanna Adams. Can't wait to hear the good news about her winning the competition, of course. And seriously, go out, check out the Washington Guard, WashingtonGuard.com. If you need information on their events this weekend or on their muster, please send them an email and see what you can find out. Definitely worth the drive, worth the visit. So please do that. And happy to have Colonel Adams with us today. Allison, some great skills classes, garden herbal medicine, firearm cleaning, several others. You know, Allison, good morning to you. We haven't seen you in a while. Happy to see you this morning. And beekeeping. See, I'd like to take a beekeeping class. I think that would be pretty interesting. I don't know that I have time or energy for bees, but I would love to take a beekeeping class just in case. That's what I need to start doing, is signing myself up for some of these different classes with the Washington Guard so I can learn some stuff. Like Colonel Adams, of course, they just a great group of people. They really are just a great group of people. So happy to have him on. And he brought up, of course, there's a couple of different things that we'll kind of carry on with for a moment. And we were talking with Colonel Adams, of course, about the drone strikes of the Mexican cartel. And I am hearing, they're like Colonel Adams said, there's not really a lot of talk. You kind of hear about little, closed door meetings, that meetings have stepped up, that the mapping of the cartels has stepped up, that we've now returned them insurgents. We already, of course, started calling the cartels terrorists. They are now a official terrorist organization, the various cartels across the border there. But now calling them insurgents, that we have insurgents coming across our border, committing acts of crime, acts of terror against Americans. And that absolutely paves the way for drone strikes against the cartels. And then we'll see if it escalates from there. Are we going to end up in a full-out war, with the cartels? Not against Mexico. Mexico, I think they would love to, solve this cartel problem as well. Some people don't believe that. I think they'd like to solve this cartel problem. I think the people of Mexico would have a lot better lives if they didn't have to deal with the cartels as well. However, a lot of businesses, of course, in Mexico, they have a hard time getting by because the cartels will come through just like organized crime, and businesses have to pay a fee to operate in some of these locations. There's a lot of farms who have to go through their cartels to get water for their farms. And so there's a lot going on, in Mexico itself. And I do feel for those people. I really do. And there's a lot of areas, of course, across Mexico that don't have to worry about it at all. Allison says, gardening soil class, man, I need that, because I'm not very, I am working on my garden. I'm not very good at it, and I'm really just too busy to do it, but I'm trying. And yes, Allison, anybody can sign up as a visitor. Thank you for that. And that's what people need to do. Go on to the Washington Guard, sign up as a visitor, come out, take a look at everything, and then make your decisions from there if you would like to become a Guard member. I think you should. I think we all should. So something else that, of course, Colonel Adams was touching base on are these trade wars. And, as I said earlier, things are, I wouldn't call them heating up. We keep upping the tariff against China. I've lost track of it. Is it 145% right now, something like that? And, China doesn't care. They just don't care. But they will care. I think that Trump is bluffing. They think he's playing a game. They're soon going to find out that that's not the case. And then Amazon, this really aggravates me about Amazon. Well, one of the chairpersons or something, not Bezos, somebody else was on the news yesterday, not television news, but some of these different Telegram sites that I look at. And he was talking about how, oh, we at Amazon, we're going to have to start raising prices because of Trump's tariff. Now, I'm fully convinced that everybody at Amazon, including Bezos, absolutely hates Donald Trump. So that wouldn't surprise me. They'll do anything to make the American people pay the price. But what they should be saying is good. This is what we need to do. Americans buy far too many products from China. We need to bring it back into the United States. We need to start manufacturing more items. We need to create more jobs instead of Amazon saying, oh, well, we're just going to pass these charges, along to the consumer. Oh, well, if people have to pay more money for our products, well, oh, well, Amazon, maybe we'll just stop buying your products. Then we won't have to worry about it. And, that's the goal, by the way. That is the goal, is that we stop buying these China-made products. We stop buying them or products from any country. And I know it's not easy. I know it costs more to buy American-made products, but we just have to do it. Of course, China continues to troll us, talking about somebody in China posted a MAGA hat that had a little sticker on it that said "Made in China," and then a lot of our goods are made in China. There's no question about it. But that's something that can easily change. Now, medication, that's another story. We're starting to hear these little rumors. Well, what if China withheld medication? What if they withheld medical equipment? I don't think that China will do that, I don't think they would do that to us. But if things continue to escalate, you really just don't know. And then, of course, our soon to become full out enemy, the European Union. I've said for a long time, the European Union, boy, they are not our friends. They are not our allies. Western Europe, not our friends, not the friends of Donald Trump or the people who support him. What is the first thing that they did? They buddy up with China. Now they're trying to work deals with China to bring Chinese cars into the UK and sell them at a very low price, without a lot of the markups, which of course China would absolutely love. They would absolutely love. They have that huge, of course, what we talked about a couple weeks ago, they have that big facility they're making. Well, I can't remember how many, was it 130 acres, something like that, or kilometers, 130 kilometers for manufacturing a certain type of electric vehicle. They would love for Europe to start, importing those cars in and selling them there. Of course, they would love it. And, I don't care about China. We'll see how things play out. I'm not worried about them at all. And I know Putin's probably getting a good laugh. He's made a lot of jokes. I like Colonel Adams said, everybody's making jokes, including Putin. And he made a joke the other day. I can't remember what it was. It was from 2016, but he posted it somewhere because back in 2016, we also had a little bit of a trade war with China. And I think it was something about, well, when the tigers fight, the smart monkey sits back and watches, something like that. It was pretty funny. And so we'll see how things go. I don't expect China to really do a lot that hurts us. They might try, but I don't expect it to happen. But Donald Trump did warn other countries. They said, do not buddy up with China. Do not do that. If you do that, you're cutting your own throat. So we'll see what happens to the European Union when Trump really has time to sit down and think about the fact that that's the very first thing they did is run over and try to buddy up with China. Of course, that's what they did. And, and speaking of Russia, I don't know if you guys have seen, but a lot of those Russiagate files have been released. And I looked at some of them and been trying to read it. But, there isn't anything too significant to talk about. All of it's the same stuff we already knew, that our government, the United States government, was paying millions of dollars to various whistleblowers, so-called whistleblowers, to give out information about Donald Trump. Not only Donald Trump, but there was a lot of other people who were really hurt in the mix of things of the whole Russia scandal. We had General Mike Flynn. There was a man who was a informant, a fake informant. He was paid $1.2 million by the U.S. government. And even the FBI even discredited his statements talking about General Mike Flynn leaving with some Russian woman. I don't remember the whole story, but it was all made up. This guy made it up for the money. He admitted to making up the stories for the money. None of it was ever true. The entire time that our 17, what did Hillary call them, 17 intelligence agencies were coming out against Donald Trump, it was really just a coup. We all know that it was a coup. Of course, they don't want to call it that, but that's exactly what it was. That they all knew this information wasn't true. They knew all the informants were only doing it for money. They were making millions of dollars to come out and give these false statements against Donald Trump and the people, like I said, General Mike Flynn and many other people as well. They destroyed a lot of these careers, of people. They really made people doubt some of them. A lot of people believed, they absolutely believed that it was true that Donald Trump was involved with Russia. It is absolutely not true. We all knew it wasn't true. We all knew that it was just a bunch of propaganda. And now we find out that our government was spending millions of dollars to pay these fake informants. And the FBI even investigated, and they found that these claims were lies. They were lies, but yet they continued on with the narrative. And I really do hope, I know Colonel Adams said the magic word, and that's treason. I really do hope that Donald Trump pushes forward with these investigations against, let's say, Hillary Clinton and some of these other people who were on these panels for Russiagate, who made these decisions, the heads of these intelligence agencies that just flat out lied. They've just flat out lied. I consider that a coup. It is absolutely treason, in my opinion. And, they throw these seditious conspiracy charges, of course, at our MAGA supporters, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, when it came to January 6th. Those people are the ones who are truly guilty of seditious conspiracy. And just like Adam Schiff, I played that video, I think it was yesterday, talking about insider trading, accusing Donald Trump and his other various members of Republican Congress of insider trading. Come on now. I think we know who's guilty for the insider trading. Karen, you also have a good weekend. So there's a lot going on. Doge, I thought this was kind of interesting too. Something else Doge uncovered, and I don't think any of us are surprised by this at all. And that is the United States Institute of Peace. They funded the Taliban and they funded Iraqi leaders that were trying to come up with plans to harm Americans. Now, this shouldn't surprise any of you. So Doge, it said they fought for days to gain access to the United States Institute of Peace. Eventually, they got the help of the FBI under Kash Patel, Metro Police. They were able to access the agency and they discovered massive fraud. Massive fraud. A lot of payments going out to the Taliban and to these Iraqi officials who were coming up with plans to harm Americans. What would we do without the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk? I will be so sad. I hope something changes where he truly doesn't step away on May 1st. I really do. I know that all of his help to us as our country, to us as Americans, I know that it's hurt him very dearly. But at the same time, we really need him. We need the Department of Doge. I hope they continue in some capacity and in some way. Joe Fry, good morning, Joe Fry. Oh, and by the way, if my friend Mary's out there listening, happy birthday to her. I can't believe it's Friday. I never leave the house. All I do is work. Well, I leave the house to work, and then I work when I'm at the house. But it is her birthday. I'm actually going to be leaving my house later to go out to the old Hurricanes in Collinsville, Illinois for a short visit with my buddy Mary. And we'll talk about it here shortly, but I've got a couple days where I won't have shows coming up. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Just some other things I wanted to quickly talk about. And is before we go, I wanted to play these videos of that helicopter crash just very quickly, because I know that we talked about this at the beginning of the show. We didn't talk about it for very long, but I really wanted to touch base on this. I'm going to show you a couple of videos here of these crashes. I hate to play this because it was just a horrific crash, but it's kind of, there's I know there's conspiracy theories all over the place. One is, why is it happening to all these executives? We had the US Bank executive, his plane crash. Was that in Boston? I can't recall where that was. Just recently, or Baltimore, I can't remember. And then there's been so many weird things going on when it comes to air disasters. A lot of it does make sense. A lot of it doesn't make sense. And let's take a look at this crash here. Well, you can see a little bit of what took place. Now there's the actual, and I hate to even play that or see it. Entire family that perished, and a pilot, of course, in that crash. And then here's it up close where you can see the propeller that coming out. Now the helicopter has already crashed. And then there's the propeller up there. I'm going to play it one more time because that's a really quick video. And it just came down as a single unit. And, you know, I'm guessing that like Jay said earlier, that maybe the propeller unit came out as a full assembly. You can see it's a full assembly, almost like it was detached somehow from the top of the helicopter. And maybe it did take out the tail section, because when you see the body of the helicopter crash, and you know, that area is very shallow, by the way. As a matter of fact, it's so shallow that in the other scene, photos of the scene, you can see the steps, or I don't know what you want to call it, the base of the helicopter sticking out of the water. And just a horrific situation. And on that helicopter, we had, the crash into the Hudson River. We had they called him a prominent Spanish CEO, Agustin Escobar of Siemens, Spain. You know, his wife, of course, and their 3 children, a 36-year-old pilot. Just absolutely terrible. Siemens being, of course, a leading technology company. So you do have to wonder what is happening. Is it just because more executives take helicopters or, small private airplanes? I can't imagine there's anything that ties these together, but it is strange. And it's even stranger that the pilot sent out that Mayday call that he was running out of fuel. Well, they allegedly he just took off. So if he just took off, how was he already out of fuel? And then, of course, that makes a lot of people online talking about, oh, it was sabotage. Well, if it was sabotage, who sabotaged them? Why would they have sabotaged this family? There's a lot of things here that just don't make sense. And one of those being fuel. Was there a leak? Maybe he thought he had full fuel tank when he took off. And in fact, he really just did not, I don't know. And good morning, Mel. And so there's lots going on here. Something else I want to touch base on, I know I don't have a lot of time, this is Ed Dowd, I believe is his name. And you may know his name, Ed Dowd. He used to work for BlackRock, talking about the COVID vaccine. We've been talking about a lot of health things lately. And I don't think any of us are surprised by his statement, but I'm going to play this. It's a very, very quick video clip here. And then, of course, we have Pete Hegseth, who recently has brought our military back because, of course, so many members of our military lost their jobs because they would not take the vaccine. And, it's interesting to me because I have a couple of friends who are members of the military, very esteemed members of our military, and they were forced. They were involved in very, very important missions. They didn't want to stop the mission that they were working on. Against their better judgment, they did get the vaccine, and then they spent a lot of time trying to get that vaccine out of their system, all the remedies you can possibly think of to try to eliminate that from their system. And it's a shame that they were forced to get it. So I'm glad that we are bringing them back, not only with their full credentials, but also with back pay, which is absolutely necessary. So take a look at this quick video.
Here was, I think, and again, I have no proof for this, but it is showing up. The COVID vaccines were designed to take care of a pension problem with the boomers, and then bring in 10 to 15 million younger, mostly male folks as replacement population. I mean, I haven't seen the documents that suggest that, but if I was going to want to take care of a debt problem and inflate the economy, I would do exactly what
that's right. It's the other side of the equation of replacement migration. You just don't bring in 25 million people and force.
So his theory, of course, working for BlackRock, he's no longer involved with BlackRock. His theory, and I believe a lot of our theories, were that the vaccine was brought into the world to eliminate the people who were really, that most countries were paying the most money for, and that is the elderly people. Because remember when and I think really maybe even the virus itself. Now, he's talking about the vaccine. I'm talking about the virus itself. When COVID first began, what exactly happened? It took out the people who were most ill, the elderly people, the people who were really taxing our medical system the most. And I've always believed that it was designed to do exactly that, to harm the people who were the most vulnerable, the people who were getting the most money in Social Security, the people who are getting the most money in different types of Medicare or Medicaid type settings. And I think that it was very effective in that because, of course, the majority of people who passed away were elderly. They were people who were immune compromised, who were taxing maybe the medical system. But now I'm talking, of course, about the virus itself, which I still believe and will always believe that it absolutely was designed as a bioweapon. Now, whether it was released mistakenly, a lab leak, whether it was intentional, I don't know. But I absolutely do believe that it was done with intent, created with intent. And then we have, of course, the vaccine. And did it have another intention? I'm not going to go on about it because we've only got a couple minutes here, but I think we know that there were certainly some ill intentions there. And I am so glad to hear that Pete Hegseth is bringing back our military members that were forced to resign because they would not take a vaccine that they were told was mandatory. And thank God for some of them who did resign, because I'll tell you what, look what we're finding out now about people who did, take the vaccine. We've all seen the videos. We've all seen the aftermath. We all see the cancer rates going up, all of these different heart conditions, myocarditis, and so on. It really does. I don't know how it doesn't resonate with more people. I still talk to people all the time who say, oh, no, it was just a regular virus. It wasn't man-made. The vaccine was perfectly safe. There are still people getting boosters, just so you know. They are still getting shots and boosters. Don't think that's not happening. And there are still people wearing masks, for that matter. Oh, man. Well, it is about time for me to go. Mel's, have you heard anything about Trump's bills and or coins and the banking system? Not really. I know that Trump is very much into crypto. He's into NFTs, but I think he's been so busy with everything else that he hasn't really had time to focus on all of that. I do think we're going to see some changes in the banking system, as we progress through Trump's term. I think we know and can see that banks are closing left and right, closing branches, closing headquarters in some cases, some banks going out of business. A lot of banks now relying on online transactions where people don't have to physically go into the bank. ATMs, of course, being able to do more than what they were able to do in the past. So the banking system is definitely changing. And how that'll be affected by crypto, I don't know. I don't know how many of you were listening, but, sorry, my mouth is super dry. Always a problem during the show, but we're going to get that fixed, hopefully, here in just a couple weeks. But we talked about American Express. They're going to offer the first crypto card that's going to have full advantages where you can trade, sell, purchase items with your crypto, which is really amazing that American Express would take that first step into giving us a crypto credit card. I like to hold on to my crypto. I'm not using it to buy anything. I made that mistake with some Bitcoin, back when it first came out. I bought $75 of Bitcoin and I spent some of it playing games online. And then I still had quite a bit left. And then I, of course, lost the key to my account. I still, to this day, have no idea how to get into find my crypto. It's out there somewhere. Where it is, I don't know. And Mel says, thank God for Elon. You got that right, Melody. You've got that right. All right, guys, it is time for me to head out. I just want to make sure everyone knows, and I'll talk about this more on Monday. I will not have a show on Tuesday or Thursday of next week because I have to get some scans done, CTs of my chest, brain scans on, but early in the morning. I'll be back in time for me to get back to work on time, but I will not be here to do a show. And then the following, of course, week, I'll have my 2 biopsies that Monday on the 21st. So I won't be here that day and probably not the next day either, because I might have a little bit of a sore throat the next day. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Always happy to have you. Happy birthday to my friend Mary and anyone else who might be celebrating today or this weekend. I will look forward to seeing you all on Monday. I hope you guys have a good weekend. And I hope you're all working on your gardens and your sourdough bread this weekend. That's my plan outside of work. So have a good day, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. And I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tab.